This episode of Nintendo Expansion Pass is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support Nintendo Pop Like and the Boss Rush Network, head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Boss Rush Network and see which tier is right for you. Thanks for your continued support. Hello everybody, welcome to Nintendo Expansion Pass here on Boss Rush Network. I'm your host, the enlightened, excited Eddie V. Joining me is the one, the only bossman himself, Mr. Corey Dirrig. Hello, good sir.
Hello, Edward Varnell.
Hello. We have a very interesting topic because it's almost close to 1 year that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has been out for Nintendo Switch. The game was released on May 12th, 2023, and we had some thoughts about this game after its initial release, and we were talking about it in our Nintendo Pop Like episode, and it kind of got me thinking because Tears of the Kingdom was trending this Sunday, and I was just kind of like, this is very interesting after this game been out that it's still trending. People are still talking about it. People still have, a variety of thoughts about the game. And I kind of feel like a certain way towards Tears of the Kingdom that, I think, of course, I feel like it's better than Breath of the Wild, in my personal opinion. But I have a different idea about this game. But Corey, I'm gonna pass it to you for a quick minute. Um, what are your thoughts about Tears of the Kingdom? Like, how do you feel about it now after it's been out for close to a year?
Yeah, so my thoughts are a little conflicted, and it's going to come out like I think this game, like some negative thoughts on the game, and it's not meant to be that way because I actually think in every conceivable way it's better than Breath of the Wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like from a gameplay standpoint, from a story standpoint, I think the story is 100 times better. I think the characters are better. The opening sequence is much better. My thing is that if you never played Breath of the Wild, I wouldn't bother playing Breath of the Wild. I would jump into Tears of the Kingdom, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want caught up on the story from Breath of the Wild, those memories are in YouTube videos. You can just go watch them, right? I mean, it's not a lot of as much as I love Breath of the Wild and how much that game means to me and us and whatever, I think Tears of the Kingdom is better. With that said, if you did spend a lot of time in Breath of the Wild, like I did, like you did, like most people did when the Switch came out,
Yes.
I think what's missing with Tears of the Kingdom is the magic of what Breath of the Wild gave us, because we almost literally have done this before, right? It's the same world. It's literally the same map with new kind of, wrinkles in it, right? Obviously the underground stuff and the sky islands, like those are all there, right? It gave us proper dungeons this time, which are great. But like essentially, like, oh, they gave us new shrines, which are, just variations of the other shrines. These powers are similar enough but different enough. Also, it depends on if you like the building mechanics or not, which I'm not somebody who likes the building stuff. But for me, mostly it's the magic. It's the magic of playing Breath of the Wild for the first time, running out of the cave, right? Kind of exploring, trying to figure out what the game is because we knew absolutely nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the magic of exploration and just figuring it out was lost in Tears of the Kingdom. You know, I think Breath of the Wild was definitely there was something really special about it, and I don't know if it's because people tie it to the Switch and how popular the Switch is, or I mean, that was the first game a lot of people played on the Switch, right? I mean,
Yes.
that game was literally outselling the Nintendo Switch at one point. And so yeah, I think that's what I would say is like the magic of what Breath of the Wild gave us is was not present in Tears of the Kingdom. And not that Tears of the Kingdom isn't a special game, right? I think it's incredibly well done. I think the story is awesome. I think the new characters they introduce are awesome. I think Ganon is scary. Like I think this is the first time I've been scared of Ganon in a very long time, if ever, right? I think um I don't remember the last time I was this scared of Ganon. I don't know if I ever have been that scared. He's just so imposing and scary, and I think the voice acting helps a lot with that, right? Matt Mercer did a great job of voice acting the character.
Yes.
Uh and just watching him do things within the memories that are scary and imposing and powerful, and that's what you want a villain to do, right? You want them to be that. And so um yeah, I think from that perspective, if you're aiming for wanting a story, a good Zelda story, this is probably the best one since Skyward Sword, I would say. Um, but like I said before, if you're into the gameplay stuff and exploring and stuff, like, and you played Breath of the Wild, this doesn't offer a lot new in that from that perspective. And so I think that's where I'm going with it. Is just the magic of figuring it out and finding your way through the world is gone in this game if you played Breath of the Wild, you know. And even if you didn't play Breath of the Wild, just from listening to people who played it, like, this is what the game is now. This is, the shrines are great, the divine beasts were okay. um but yeah, I mean, I I would actually say if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, you should just go straight to Tears of the Kingdom, in my opinion, because I actually think Breath of the Wild will ruin Tears of the Kingdom for you.
Yeah. Well, I think with Breath of the Wild, because it is a new direction for the
Hmm.
Legend of Zelda series. Like, if for those who have kind of like followed the series in a sense, um you got the top down view with a little bit of the 2D with Zelda 2, but you had the, kind of like the Triforce era with it. And then once you get to the N64, you start getting like the 3D Zeldas that doesn't focus so much on the Triforce anymore. It focused on like different parts, the elements and three pieces and stuff, and doing a dark and light kind of transition in some of the games.
Hmm.
Even with Wind Waker, that's kind of how they kind of somewhat return back to the Triforce in a little bit, but it wasn't.
Ed's dying,
Sorry,
everybody. He's
sorry
choking on
about
something. He did this before we started recording too. He's just falling apart, everybody.
excuse
Keep
me.
Ed in your prayers. Um,
Yes. But it was a transition away from the Triforce. So now, in this universe of Zelda, I should say, you got this freedom of Link, to go anywhere and to plot your destination and how you get there and how you prepare. Like, it's truly open world. Is that you have the freedom, but you have to prepare for that journey that you're going to make, whether it's rewarding or not. And there's going to be some, distractions on your way, or some interest on your way with it in Breath of the Wild and even in Tears of the Kingdom. And my take with it, and I love that you said losing the magic. That
uh-huh.
is something that no one has really said or anything.
Yeah.
And it stands out because of it's that freedom of exploration, and just seeing what Nintendo could do, and Anuma and the team, what they could do if they had, just gave you that if they gave you that freedom of being able to explore the land. And if you want to progress in the game, or if you even want to get to the ending and stuff, you have that freedom to do it. Anuma and them and the team didn't hold your hand. So all of these new concepts, all this expectations and surpassing those expectations, that's where the magic was at. Don't
Mhm.
forget, when Breath of the Wild came out, people were online to be like, "Shut up about this game and don't say nothing to me about it because I want to experience it." And if it was okay for people to talk about it, everybody experience was different. Things that you played in a one game, someone played, didn't experience it in their gameplay yet, until later. But they did something that you didn't do. It was all new, and it was just like, how is a game this big on a system of this magnitude? How how can it deliver all of this content?
Mhm.
And that's what Breath of the Wild presented. And then with Tears of the Kingdom, they expanded that to give you more freedom, out of different places, but it didn't feel the same because it was just like, okay, we already got this expectations and we got this feel of it. And for some people, they don't have that same feeling with Tears of the Kingdom in that game.
Mhm.
Great, phenomenal game, and great narrative of a game that's being told, which differentiate from Breath of the Wild. That Breath of the Wild really didn't have a narrative because everybody was into that openness and exploration. With Tears of the Kingdom, you got a great story. You got a narrative, stuff that people wanted from Nintendo. Once again, people want stories for Nintendo, and when they deliver it, it's something that is going to be memorable or not. And from my takeaway, with it after being a year, and stuff, I really think, and this is kind of different from where me and Corey's coming from. I really think now that it should have got Game of the Year from like the Game Awards, and no disrespect to uh not Diablo 4, but
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate and stuff. But I think, I'm just not seeing. I mean, Baldur's Gate had a lot of talk, even when it got released on Xbox and just released on PlayStation, and in all of these places, like, people are still talking about it. But yet, Tears of the Kingdom is still trendy, and people are still showcasing videos, people are still doing artwork, people are still using that game as experiment. There's a college who is going to, their engineering course is going to be, using Tears of the Kingdom for like experiments for their students and stuff. And it's kind of amazing that a game that didn't win Game of the Year is still being talked about. It's still making sales. Like, the game is still selling and stuff. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Zelda though, right? I mean,
yeah,
all these games are still selling. It's kind of funny because like all of these games are just like out there, right? They're just happening. And um Zelda is one of those games. I mean, it's the same thing we talked about with Breath of the Wild though. Is like that game just kept selling. It's still Breath of the Wild is still selling, Like I think
yeah,
even if you didn't play Breath of the Wild, like I wonder how many people played Tears of the Kingdom and then went back to Breath of the Wild, right? Like I wonder what that number looks like, right? Because um I think the difference between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is even though they're the same game, they are pretty different in terms of I mean, even the way the games open, right? Like
yeah.
Breath of the Wild, you run out of the cave, they teach you how to like climb up the wall and use the Sheikah slate, and you're out. You can go do whatever you want. Whereas Tears of the Kingdom, which is actually something I really appreciated, um, was there is a linear story beat that you have to play through before you get out into the world. And even when you get out into the world, like, yes, you can technically land, right? But I mean, well, actually, you start in the Sky Islands and you have to do the story stuff for the Sky Islands before you even get to the ground, right? And
Yeah.
then once you get to the ground, you have to go to that central town. I forget what it's called. Sky, what's it called? Sky something. Um, the lookout something.
Yeah.
And you go there, right? And then you have to talk to Pyra in the or Pyrrha in the scientists there, right? And then you go off, and then it tells you where the story beats are, which is also a very nice thing. But like that's what I'm saying though, is like the magic of the exploration and figuring out what to do is gone. And I think they did that on purpose based off of feedback, right? Because
Yeah.
I it is a little frustrating when you don't know where you're going. I like that it gave you the option to either follow the story stuff or go explore, right? I think Tears of the Kingdom does that masterfully.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that also eliminates the, like I said, the magic of figuring it out, or oh, technically I can go over here and if I'm good enough, I can get my way through it, but I'm clearly not supposed to be here yet. Let's go explore somewhere else, you know. So um so yeah, I mean it I guess it just depends on what you want and where you start. You know, I think
Yeah.
and I actually think a lot of this, as much as we wanted a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, I actually think that may have been the wrong move for or not, well, clearly it's not the wrong move because they've sold 25 million units of this game. But
Sure, but I think they did what was it 10 million in
I mean,
one day?
I think it's I don't know. I think they're at the 25 million mark at this point though.
But I mean, when the game first released, I think they
Oh,
did.
I don't
I,
remember.
I
They
think
were
it was
doing bonkers numbers though, as Ed would say. Um,
yeah, because they
but
hit a high number on their first day of sales when
yeah,
that game came out.
yeah. But I think in terms of like recapturing that magic,
Hmm.
I think setting it in a new version of Hyrule or a new place, even if it is a direct sequel, like I think setting it in a new place would have been, you know, the way to go. Although, you know, it's so funny because this game still took 6 years to come out, and they used the same map and the same animations, right?
Yeah,
I mean, very clearly they were using the engine to build these building mechanics, right? That was what that that's probably what that time was made for, right? And like adding to the world. But
yes.
um, if we would have gotten a new world, we we would be dead before the next Zelda game comes out. Like, uh, you know, so
And-
I think the thing too though is like I still want a third game in this world, right?
yeah,
I love these versions of Zelda and Link and Pyrrha and Ganon, and like I love this Zelda universe, right? I love the world. I love the characters. I love the story they're telling. I love the zone. They finally introducing the Zonai. I love all of it. Um, and I would love a third game set in this world. I just want it set somewhere else, you know?
I think the thing about it is that, and I'm gonna make a Grand Theft Auto not comparison, but I'm gonna use that. Is that yes, the GTA games have evolved, no, not evolved, but they changed their settings,
Hmm.
and people love those games for what it is. Like, and they barely don't have to change anything. Like you mentioned, changing a setting or something. If they change a different setting in Zelda, it
Hmm.
would be,
It would go a long way. It would
it
go
would,
a really long way.
but I think the setting is I think Hyrule is such uh Hyrule is such a world that's I think it's been through many transitions, and I'm kind of just thinking like, do you actually send do you actually would it I should say this, would there ever be a Zelda game that does not use Hyrule at all?
Well, I mean, there've been plenty. Link's Awakening, uh, Majora's Mask.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, technically, Skyward Sword doesn't really use Hyrule. They use, the Sky Islands, right? Like, there's plenty of Zelda games that don't use the handheld ones,
Link's
for
Awakening,
DS, Spirit
Spirit
Tracks and
Tracks.
Phantom Hourglass. I don't
But
think those take place in Hyrule.
no,
One of them might, but
uh, um,
I mean,
not
so
Spirit Tracks, but the other one,
Phantom Hourglass.
Phantom Hourglass, because that takes place in that version of Hyrule with Wind Waker,
Yeah.
in a
So,
sense.
but my point is like you could do Termina, you could do the island for Link's Awakening. You could,
Hmm.
I know Link's Awakening technically Dream, whatever.
Yeah.
You could give us another land mass. There's got to be other kingdoms than Hyrule, right? I mean, there's got to be other places. I mean, you don't have to stick to Hyrule. I think it would be really fascinating for Zelda to expand past Hyrule. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the question. If because like everybody know, Tears of the Kingdom was the expansion pass for Breath of the Wild.
it started
Um,
that way.
yeah, and then they started getting more ideas, is testing stuff out, and working with Monolith Soft, and this is the first Zelda game literally built up for Switch.
Mhm.
So, I think there was so much, and then uh trying things, breaking things, fixing those things, like getting the quality up to snuff. Like, I think the Zelda team was doing so much and everything that uh I feel like if they tried to create anything new, like a brand new universe or Hyrule or whatever, I think it would have delayed the game a little bit further, and we might have not seen this game until the next Nintendo console because of so much that's happening. We had a question from Todd Oxtra at Nintendo Power Block, and if the Switch was gonna go out of a bang, this game, I think Tears of the Kingdom would have been the bang of the game.
Mhm.
I did say Pokemon as an answer for that, but
Well,
I think that like Tears of the Kingdom, like if they spent time and everything to like change, and give us a brand new game that's very different from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom might be in that game.
yeah, and judging by what we heard at PAX, right? Like this console was supposed to be out this year. It was supposed to be out in March, judging from what we heard at PAX. That's why the Nintendo booth was there to showcase games that were on the new console, and they're just not. It's just not ready. So, um, it's really fascinating to um, see. Oh, this was supposed to be our kind of last hurrah while we start ramping up games and marketing, which would have been really interesting to see stuff like Paper Mario and Luigi's Mansion kind of anchor whatever new game is coming, right? Like
Yeah,
the launch game. Um, which also tells me that the next console is backwards compatible because of the games that are out coming out now, and if that new console's coming out, like these games were supposed to be out, right? Like, anyways, I think yeah, I just think where were we going with this? Yeah, it would have been really interesting to see Breath of the Wild kind of be the last hurrah for the Switch, right?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom, sorry, yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, and it's to have pretty much with Switch, it's now at this point in time the ultimate Zelda games. Like, of course, it doesn't have Phantom Hourglass, and it doesn't
Hmm.
have um, Spirit Tracks
Yeah,
because of
where's my
those,
train?
you know. But like, if we do get Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, it would have most of the console games on there, because we got Zelda 1 and 2
Mhm.
for NSO. I mean, on the Nintendo side, we got Link to the Past, and Link Between Worlds we don't have on Switch. Um, Link to
Yeah,
the Past, we have that on the Super Nintendo side. We got Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time for N64. We got Link's Awakening DX, and the original version, I believe, on for the Game Boy. So like Game Boy Color.
yeah.
And then we got Skyward Sword that you could buy. We got Link's Awakening, the remake. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, like Hyrule Warriors 1 and 2, uh, on there. So like we have a lot of Zelda that you could play on Switch. And so if Tears of the Kingdom was that bang to end the system, I don't even think we probably would have this conversation because it will definitely be a new experience away from Breath of the Wild and everything.
Hmm.
And it's just like, and in a year that, if that was the case, like it- like let's just take this year, 2024. If Microsoft wasn't doing what it's doing now, and we just found out that Sony isn't really like releasing first party stuff, Tears of the Kingdom may be the game that saved just 2024 or and Nintendo alone and
It's
everything.
it's so funny because you like I was listening to a PlayStation podcast the other day, and they were talking about how like so it's Sony is happy that Spider-Man sold like 10 million copies or something,
Hmm.
and like they're just like, but then you go and look at like Nintendo's sales, and they have something like Animal Crossing that sells 40 million units without blinking an eye, or even Luigi's Mansion 3 sold like 17 million units or something, and they were just like, Sony excuse my language real quick, but this was a quote from the podcast. They were like, Sony would shit their pants if one of their games sold 15 million units. I'm just like, well, yeah. I think God of War is probably the game that has sold the most for them, and I think God of War sold 20 million.
Hmm.
But then you have stuff like, The Last of Us selling like 8 million, and Spider-Man selling 10 million, which Spider-Man kind of surprises me a little bit that that's that low, but also like the PlayStation 5 hasn't sold nearly as many units as the PS4. So, and we've always said that Spider-Man's probably going to have a long tail, especially if they're going to have that Venom expansion that was leaked, and like the X-Men, and the all this stuff that supposedly is coming from Insomniac being the Marvel studio for the next 12 years, which
Yeah.
kind of sucks in its own way. But
And yeah, because I, like I said, this is not a knock against Microsoft or Sony or anything, but I'm just like, if you're going up against a Nintendo IP, most likely at this time, Nintendo games are definitely going to win. They don't have to sell big in their first time, because if they do, the expectation is that big sales continue. Like,
Mhm.
of course, the Spider-Man sold super well over Super Mario Brothers Wonder, but Wonder is still staying on the list of games being sold.
I don't know. I think Wonder has outsold it at this point.
It may have.
I'm looking that up.
Uh,
Mario Wonder sales figures. We're gonna get these updated figures soon.
yeah, it felt.
Mario Wonder. Um, this was as of February. Mario Wonder has sold 12 million units,
Okay.
so it's getting up there. I still, man, I fell off that game so hard. I wanted to like that game more than I did.
I gotta just pop it back in and continue playing.
Yeah, maybe that's
I
it.
do enjoy that game. Like I said, 23. had so much greatness across the board. Like from PlayStation to Microsoft to Nintendo, like triple A first party and third party games was major. The only ones who were missing were indie games. So there was just a lot to play, definitely in October.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. So it's just like everybody now is catching up in
Yeah.
a sense. And even with Tears of the Kingdom, people are catching up because as much as Baldur's Gate 3 is such a phenomenal game for people who have played it and picked it up and love that game, Tears of the Kingdom is still it's still being talked about. It's still coming out of people's mouth. It's still getting artwork. It's still being showcased. Like there's so much of the not I won't say fandom. There's so much of content is just coming out of that title alone. Still to this very day, and it's only been a year. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I'm not knocking Baldur's Gate or Litharian Studios. Hopefully I said that right. I'm not knocking them on making that product, but you would think of a game that is Game of the Year material would still keep you talking. Because when Breath of the Wild won this Game of the Year, it was still being talked about sales and showing, and people were still thinking about that game until Tears of the Kingdom came out.
Mm-hmm.
So it it just it kind of just amazes me that regardless of what people think about Tears of the Kingdom, it's very impactful. Um, just for gamers and Nintendo in general. Like I still think that game is very impactful and everything. But like you said, Corey, I in a way I do agree with you that it lost its magic. But that's because of people experiencing that idea with Breath of the Wild and how cemented Breath of the Wild is, and how good it was, how it showcased this is how you do a open world game. And like look at Metacritic, both games are like in the 90s. No one was touching Breath of the Wild after it came out. And if
Mm-hmm.
people were touching it, they're gonna be like, "Are we have to? th- You had to match it or surpass Breath of the Wild," and people were not doing that
Mm-hmm.
for open world sandbox games. You know.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Nintendo innovated in a lot of ways with their open world. I also think there are games that maybe do it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, it's all about the execution of the world that you're building, right? And so, I think a lot of people point at. I think. Let me back up a little bit. I think people used to look at Bethesda as the pinnacle of open world games, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would say Fallout 3, Skyrim era Bethesda. When Fallout 4 came out, right, people were really excited for it. And then people got really disappointed in it. Why? Because games like The Witcher, Metal Gear Solid 5, and even, games before that did open worlds or open-ish worlds better, right? And had surpassed Bethesda in a lot of ways. And even with Starfield now, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's still, yeah, you can go to all these planets and stuff, but it's still like instead of walking to the next town, you just fly your spaceship there, right? It's not like and it's still a Bethesda game. And people like that, and great. I'm happy for the people that like it, right? Those games aren't for me, they will never be for me. Um and I know I'm in the minority of that. But there are a lot of games that have done open worlds better, right? I mean, even now, like, yes, Breath of the Wild is one of them. I think Assassin's Creed does it very well. I know people like to hate on those games, but I actually think Odyssey and Valhalla do that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
People still go to Assassin's Creed too. Like if we're talking about like an open world sandbox game, Assassin's Creed 2 is the first one that comes out.
um, I think I think current man, I lost it now. But there are a lot. My point is there are a lot of different types of open worlds, and I think a lot of companies have learned to execute their versions of open worlds
Mm-hmm.
better than others sometimes. But also it comes down to preference. But yes, I agree. I think Nintendo created an open world that was interesting, that was inspired, but also innovative and also inventive in a lot of ways. And I think Tears of the Kingdom took that to a new level, and I think they are both wonderful video games. I think they are both deserving of being played.
Yeah.
But if you could only play one, Breath of the Wild for me is the best, is my favorite game of all time, I think. But Tears of the Kingdom, from a gameplay perspective, from a story perspective, from a character building perspective, is better in almost every way, I would say. But like I said, it's the magic that was gone for me. So if you never played those games before, I would say jump into Tears of the Kingdom. For me, if I ever replay these games at some point, it's gonna be Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, it's going to be Sears. And like I said, I love Breath of the Wild. Will always love that game. Um, but I think Tears for me was just like I was stopping to laugh. I was getting scared because a tree came out and started chasing me.
Oh
Like
yeah, those trees, dude, they'll get you.
like it there was just so much to that game that I did not expect. And the music that I and some of the towns in Tears of the Kingdom that I literally stopped just to listen. And it really made me think to be like, ooh, Anuma, you guys. I'm like, what you guys would do if you guys are giving power, like Horizon Forbidden West PS5 or PS4 Pro power. Like, what would you guys do? And shout out to thinking I cannot not think of the developer, Guerrilla Games. Shout out to Guerrilla Games for Horizon on PS5 Forbidden West. Like, that game looks
Oh man,
gorgeous in movement.
it's one of the best looking games I think I've ever seen. Period. I think that, and then what else just came out that was really, 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 really
Uh,
good looking? Oh, Hellblade.
yeah,
That came. I mean, it's not out yet, but it will be.
yeah. I would say for me, Ghost of Tsushima on PS4 looks gorgeous too. Like, just
Mhm.
I
I
haven't seen the PS5 version, but like PS4, like I like how they play around with color
mhm.
and everything. Like, it looks Sucker Punch. Shout out to them. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, Infamous was awesome. I really liked Second
yes,
Son.
I did too.
I know people
Yeah.
like to not like Second Son, but I really like Second Son. I also didn't really play in the other Infamous games though. Uh,
So
what was the There's something else. Oh, I think Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Rebirth are both incredible looking games too.
yes, definitely agree with you. Yes, dude. I'm not even gonna.
Video games just look good all the
Dude,
time now.
I'm not even going to front. Gears 5, still the best Gears. That game looks gorgeous. And Series
Yeah.
X version, oh, dude, I was
Well,
just like, oh, y'all clowns.
I
Y'all
don't I don't
clown
know.
with that game.
I don't know if you've been keeping up with the Gear 6 rumors floating around.
It's trending, but I didn't click on it to read it or
They're
anything.
saying if you think Hellblade looks amazing, wait till you see Gear 6 at the summer showcase. That's what they're
That's
talking
the
about.
rumor.
That's the rumor. It's going to be Hellblade levels of quality with gameplay level, or Gears gameplay level quality, running at 60 frames a second on the Xbox Series X.
Oh, I wouldn't even doubt them.
Oh,
The way they know how to use Unreal Engine 5. If they did
well, they're
that
helping
demo,
build it.
right? But what I'm saying is, I like if they, who did they didn't do the Matrix demo.
They did.
Oh, they did.
Hmm.
Um,
They helped with it. Yes,
okay. Uh,
man. Give me a Matrix game in Unreal.
right. I literally, of course, that team who's doing Gear 6, like,
The coalition
because
is.
the coalition, yeah, I think because they know Unreal Engine, and some of them used to work at Epic, like, they know they could get something out of that mud. And I'm just like, as long as them, my thing is, I want to see the gameplay, and definitely, of course, when they're walking, you're gonna see the environments and stuff. Like, it's going to be a masterpiece in art,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know.
it's gonna be something. So I'm very excited for a lot of games coming.
Hmm.
I'm very poor on time and money right now, but I'm happy. Video games make me happy, and I don't know. Recently, I've been in like this weird video game funk where I just can't be happy playing video games for some reason. But also like video games, even just watching other people play video games recently while I'm like working on stuff for just everything. Video games just make me happy and excited, and I mean, this is why we do this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so even if I'm not like keeping up as much as I used to with news and stuff, and kids don't allow
Life.
me to play video games as much as I would like to, and uh you know, but anyways, enough about me.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we're gonna wrap it right there. I just thought that, with the year almost coming up for Tears of the Kingdom, just having that discussion, just seeing it trending on X or Twitter, whatever you guys want to call it, just seeing it still trending, it amazes me, uh, just how impactful that game is.
Hmm.
Um, and everything. And like, I think with Nintendo Switch, and their first party games, I think a lot of them are just so impactful. And this is just outside of sales or anything. We're talking on Nintendo Pop Lock, and about a question, the last raw, oh no, not last raw, what game will influence, will have a big influence for the next console. And Corey, you mentioned Xenoblade Chronicles, and I'm just like, yeah, I agree with that. And to see what they could do on their next console, man, that's going to be something. And that's why I just feel like with Nintendo Switch and the games that came out, this has to be one of their strongest consoles and strongest first party library. And,
Hmm.
this is just not even thinking about the sale numbers. They're just talking about the quality of the games, and the memories that people have of them.
Yeah,
So,
good times.
yes. Well, with that, everybody, we'll see you next time on Nintendo Expansion
Nintendo
Pass.
Wow.
Bye, everybody.
Wow. 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 If you want to see how you can become a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. The Patreon producers for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dirrig, Francisco Santillan, Matthew Keel, and Todd Oxtra. Thanks for your continued support of the Boss Rush Network.